Peter Todd, how would you kill Bitcoin?
Well, I tell you how I'd kill Bitcoin. I'd sow discontent throughout the community, throughout the GitHub repositories. I would be so angry about every little thing that I would make people afraid to suggest even the slightest change. And then we would have to ossify, and we could no longer upgrade any of the protocols. So it would take a very long time, but Bitcoin would not be able to improve anymore, and therefore it would become stagnant, and people would move on.
Ossification, good or bad?
But I mean, that's defending Bitcoin.
Argument.
That's not attacking Bitcoin, Peter. That's defending it.
No, that is why it's the perfect attack, is because many people consider it to be a defense.
I mean, that kind of though ties into like Luke's concerns with speedy trial last year with the entire Taproot activation. I mean, how do you really ascertain in a situation where you have dissent, disagreement, and confrontation in the development process, like the difference between an attack on Bitcoin and just legitimate disagreement? Like, where do you draw that line? How do you assess that? And more importantly, how do you react to that? Like, if you can't really ascertain whether something is an intentionally malicious action, then you're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. Like, you engage in good faith and try to settle something that could be a dispute, or in your reaction, maybe actually inadvertently become the attacker yourself.
Can you steelman why you're saying speedy trial was an attack? Or Luke?
Well, I mean, Luke, if you want to take that one, or I'm just supposed to be moderating after all.
Well, for the first part, it gives miners the ability to veto a soft fork, which has presumably already come to consensus within the community. And secondly, the community had already decided to move forward with Taproot with the BIP8 deployment, and the developers who were pushing speedy trial decided to essentially disregard what the community had already determined and come to consensus on, and just go forward with something else without even getting community buy-in.
That's right. We didn't actually start with BIP8 for Taproot, did we?
No, I mean, that's the entire process was really just arguing over activation once everything was finalized, and nobody could agree. And I mean, to kind of throw the idea out here and how to mitigate that, if you view something like speedy trial as an attack, the potential for user-activated soft forks and the viability of actually coordinating that and hitting enough of a level of adoption that that's actually going to affect something. It's not just going to be a few people in the corner that everyone ignores. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that going forward versus what happened in 2017?
Well, I mean, from your perspective, does an attack require malicious intent? Because I think in hindsight, you can certainly say that certain things were attacks on various principles that most of us hold dear when it comes to Bitcoin. But really, the problem was that just some of those attackers simply didn't hold those same principles. I don't know, I think from a class of attack standpoint, it seems like social / mimetic / narrative have much greater potential, or at the very least, it's more difficult for me to reason about how to defend against them. It's a much bigger gray area, whereas we can talk about all types of technical attacks, and usually the defenses against various technical attacks are very logical and straightforward, but this much more fuzzy social attack vector is something you just sort of have to deal with as it comes.
I was recently in Austin, Texas, going to some Bitcoin conferences related to South by and everything. And I have to say, I was really impressed by the number of new developers that I met there that introduced themselves to me as anonymous developers. They gave me their pseudonym, You know, and I asked them, oh, do you just use that? And they said, yeah. And the reason for that is, as a Bitcoin developer, maybe that's the optimal strategy. If people don't really know who you are and maybe you don't even attend conferences, maybe that helps protect you. Maybe that helps protect Bitcoin. So I won't answer your question, but I would say that Bitcoin has a very impressive social immune system that has been developed. And if you try to coerce Bitcoiners, try to change the protocol unilaterally, the immune system will spit you out and reject you. And that's just a really fascinating social phenomenon. You know, it's just really interesting to see that in process. It might actually be one of Bitcoin's great assets, really, is this just layer, this immune system of people that defend Bitcoin voluntarily, you know, and they're not coordinated at all, but it's all people who believe in Bitcoin.
Anybody have some smart-ass comments? Your one trick to guarantee Bitcoin's invincibility?
Bitcoin is the greatest bug bounty program of all time. Good luck.